Szép délutánt kívánok mindenkinek. Elkezdjük a délutáni programunkat. Délután I have to speak in English, sorry. Is that right? So in the afternoon, we will have our topic, the dignity of work, and we invited Dr. Tibor Hey Tibor, who was my teacher in the
Dr. Hey Tibor,
Sapiencia. I studied
quien era mi profesor
social principles in
en
economy,
la sapiencia,
and his
Dios
course
Cristo,
was very exciting, and the title was very long. It was
pero estaba bien
responsible enterprise, strategic planning,
pues,
business planning,
en el
and
negocio.
you will see what is connection with all this, with the work. And
Ahora vamos a
what
ver
I know that he originally an electric engineer,
Cristiano,
studied in
por
Budapest, and
un
then later he studied in the United States and got her MBA,
estado
and then in Italy, PhD in Sofia University. So he's a very knowledgeable person,
muy,
but he's rather a practitioner and not a theorist.
pero más bien no es terrorista, más bien práctico.
And now he runs a
Ahora es
consulting company,
consultoría,
and he is, what is interesting, that he's the founder of a non-profit company to provide job opportunities for handicapped people.
para
And
ayudar
they currently employ more than 120 persons. So
Sí.
it's a
ayuda.
quite interesting thing. How can we think about economy as in a holistic way? So
En la economía,
please,
una manera
Tibor, please
en íntegro.
start your presentation. We are very excited to see it. Thank
Estamos
you.
muy
Thank you very much.
Carla.
I'm very excited too.
Gracias.
Because, it's such
Gracias. Estoy muy honrado también estar con
very special event, and I'm glad that I can give you some thoughts about
muy
our
feliz.
topic tonight, which is the dignity of work.
También
And I would like to go through an arc, starting with a short introduction, and speaking about business and economy in general, whether it's good or bad, how the two worlds of church and the secular world started to a process of convergence. Then I will speak about the so-called holistic value creation matrix, about those companies who aim social benefit, not only profit.
sociales.
As the last point, about speaking about servant leadership, which I think is the ultimate solution for this convergence. And finally, there will be some closing remarks and a little surprise as well.
Yes.
And before we go into the topic itself, and although I was already introduced, but very quickly I would like to show you my background as a snapshot, just to show you that, as you heard, I'm originally a businessman. I do strategy consulting, I run companies, but at the same time I'm involved in the non-profit sector as well, running charity organizations. I set up my an organization, a foundation by myself. Oh, slower, yeah.
Por mí mismo.
For me to not to speak very fast. And as you heard, I also set up a company, a non-profit company. As for the educational background, lifelong learning is something which I also practice. So my PhD I did just 10 years ago in Italy, but geographically in Italy, but it belongs to Vatican. And last but not least,
Italia,
I have a very
motivating
and nice family with 4 children.
Una familia.
Already 4 grandchildren, and I think that's also very important in my life. So I try to balance my life according to these 4 dimensions. The basis for it is my Christian faith, and that's why I would like to start with a definition of human dignity for those specifically who are in the world of work, business leaders. The
los que
church
del trabajo,
wanted to redefine or reformulate
la
the
iglesia,
content of human dignity. Just recently, a few years ago, when there was a book
algunos
issued in different languages. This is the Hungarian one
publicar
version, Vocation of the Business Leader, which is about
acción
how to deal
de
with the
líder,
companies, how to run companies,
cómo
if you
dirigir
want to
compañías,
insist on the Christian social teaching.
si sobre todo
Since you know
vivir
the
las
definition of human dignity, I only want to express and quote the middle part, that each person is
citar sobre
a
todo
who, not a
la
what,
libertad,
someone, not a something.
documento.
And for us in business,
Cada
it's a very
persona
challenging sentence, because all of you know the expression
es
human
un mismo.
resources and
Se corta la comunicación, no se oye.
we normally treat our employees as resources. We have financial resources, we have natural resources, and we have human resources. But this is absolutely not right, because people are persons. Each person is a who, and in
Personas son
him
quienes,
or herself, and
quién
not
o
a
qué,
resource which should be used to
no es,
change and achieve profit.
no
I think
solamente un
that's a core message. And therefore, if we
medio
think
para ganar dinero.
in this new way, based on the Catholic social teaching, and work is not just something we
La
have to do
enseñanza
to survive,
católica,
to assure our existence, we have a very
católica,
good option to see work as a field with the potential to
tenemos
become co-creators of God.
para ser
Not a
co-creador
resource, not
Dios,
something, not a profit-generating additional machine, but we are
hombre, no
invited by
es
God
solamente hecho para hacer,
to become co-creators.
pero estamos
And the last encyclical
co-creadores.
letter of Pope Francis, Fratelli Tutti, just 3 months ago,
Francés
he also expressed that
escribió,
work is an essential dimension of social life.
el trabajo
This is
es
not only a means of earning one's daily bread,
de la vida
but
humana,
also a personal growth, the
un
building of healthy relationships,
medio para
self-expression,
hacer
and the
dinero,
exchange of gifts.
pero
I
también es
think this kind of approach is a much
compartir
broader view than just treat people as
dones
costs
de
on
cada
Excel
persona,
sheet, as resources to make profit with, and therefore
irnos
our, business leaders, international organizations like
donde
UNIAPAC, which is a worldwide organization of business leaders, started to create a study with this approach about work, about leadership, about management. It says that
trabajo
calls on human persons to join in and cooperate with his work. That's why I
llama
say
al
that
hombre
we are
a
invited to
hablar,
become
hablar
co-creators.
con él
And
y el
work is both a human and a spiritual experience.
trabajo es
And not
espiritual,
just spiritually in general terms, but
no
a deeply Christian
espiritual
experience.
en general,
And
ya,
we can follow Jesus Christ while he proclaims the justice of the kingdom,
y el
or while
Jesucristo
he walks the way of
quien
the cross
ha
to
anunciado
Golgotha.
la justicia
This is also
del reino.
sometimes our own experience. In each case, when I will use quotes, you will get the presentation and there is the source, so you can check it
Cada
on the internet
momento
afterwards
cuando
as well.
yo voy a citar a alguien, también voy a ponerlo
But if
en
this is our call, why and what hinders us to act with this mission and vision of
y
work?
nuestra
Why do we
vocación es ayudar
reduce our activity to
a
a mere
ser co-creadores,
profit-generating
que
approach?
es los
And
obstáculos
again, if I go
que
back
han hecho
to
de nuestra
Pope Francis and
generación
to
como
Fratelli
generación
Tutti,
de
it
crear
says that in today's world, the sense of belonging to a single human family is fading.
el
We
sentido
don't
de que estamos
think about
usando
our employees as
una
resources.
familia,
We don't think about them as members of our family, as our brothers and sisters. These are two different approaches.
de todos como
And
no-
then the Pope continues, how wonderful it would be if the growth of scientific and technological innovation
Qué
could
bueno.
come with more equality and social inclusion. So not just focusing on the GDP, on the
El
technology,
bien
on the
de
newest
todos los
iPhone and
hombres,
so on, but to think about
más
the
que el GDP.
social inclusion, again, thinking in mankind as one family, as one unity. Market is very important, but the freedom of the market was not sufficient to keep everything secure. This is what we realized on the crisis in the 2008-2009 period, and also these days where we are hit by the COVID virus. As the Pope summarized, we are prisoners of a virtual reality, and we lost the taste and flavor of the truly real. We are much more heavily involved in the virtual world and much less on the physical level, having this kind of contact with each other. And the crisis is always a good moment to think about changes. And again, the Pope sadly summarizes that we had this chance, for example, in 2007, 2008, but the response to the crisis did not include rethinking the outdated criteria which continue to rule the world. This is the general term, this is the general approach, this is the mainstream, but it's not the only one, and that's why we are here. If we think about the two approaches, we can think about the for-profit world in a very simple way and the non-profit world. These are two different worlds with two different goals, one aiming to profit, the other one driven by altruism.
Ahora sí
And they are completely separated, or they have been completely separated, which is again not an ideal situation. But it was realized that this is not good, that having two different worlds on the one globe, and therefore there is a chance to do something more which integrates the best parts of both worlds and brings the human flourishing onto a higher level.
mundos,
Not alone
una empresa de beneficio económico
to maximize profit,
y
and
mundos
aiming to minimize
más
poverty or other
operación
problems, but to optimize the needs of the entire society and to do the activities within the economy with having in mind that we are
queremos
here to do something good for the whole society.
bueno para toda la sociedad y no solamente
This is
para
called
yo,
for-benefit model.
unas
Models, and it relies on the two former groups, and each of them had to develop own ideas based on their own principles to come to this solution. Here you can see two pillars from the for-profit world, the so-called CSV, and I will immediately speak about it, and from the non-profit world, the CIV, which again I will describe very soon. CSV, which was one of the pillars, is creating shared value. It's a concept which was developed in 2011.
CVC es un desarrollaron en 2011 por Michael Porter.
A very well-known Harvard professor.
Es un profesor en
realized that everything partly he himself developed in the past several decades about how to increase profit, how to make business, how to run a capitalist company, reached its border, and that's why he developed a new idea, creating shared value. Creating shared value means that we rethink about the whole procedure, about the whole value chain of doing business, starting with the procurement and development up to the selling and after sales activities. And we not only rely on the innovations, we not only aim growth for the company, but we always have a third aim, societal profit. all the activities every day should have a positive impact on the society. That's much more than, for example, doing everything according to the old system, and once a year, for one day, we do something good. The difference is now they want to think about the daily activities as has a societal benefit, advantage for the whole society. That's a major breakthrough. On the other hand, it still lacks the spiritual value and the Spirit and the Holy Spirit as well. That's our part to fit it into this picture, and this is what Pope Benedict in 2009 in his encyclical letter Caritas in Veritate, which is the second pillar of the four benefit concept in my view, not only spoke about his suggestions and ideas of general terms, but also about those which are for the businessmen, for those who are in the world of economy.
Ahora, ¿es mejor o no? Es que no sé.
First of all, he declared that we have to focus on the whole man and every man.
Enfocar
One aspect, a
del
resource
hombre,
which has hands, for example, or can think and innovate something,
la
but we
totalidad
think
del hombre.
in the whole man. If, for example, if we think about our employees, on the other hand, we think in every man, because every person in the world, all the 8 billion by now, are our
Cada hombre,
brothers and sisters
totalidad
for
del
whom
hombre.
we have to take some responsibility.
Tenemos
As it is said in the
de todo.
fourth point, responsibility on the part of everyone with regard to everyone.
Tenemos responsabilidad hacia todos, para todos.
When he speaks about, and we as business leaders usually speak about how to make decisions and that there are certain rules for it,
Como de líderes
we
de
have to be aware, which is in this encyclical letter as well, that every economic decision has a moral consequence.
tenemos que tomar en
It
cuenta
cannot be that I am very moral before and after the working hours,
consecuencias
only on Sundays, for
para
example. If I have
unidad,
integrity,
no
if I
solamente
am
el domingo,
Christian, I have to know that every economic decision I do as a leader has a moral consequence.
tiene consecuencias para todos.
As I said, one of them, of the pillars, was issued in 2009, the other one, CSV, in 2011. Then in 2013, this kind of a synthesis happened. The leader, the president of World Bank, which World Bank represents the business world, personally visited the Pope. By that time, it was already Francis.
Unos
And
líderes,
asked for
siete,
cooperation
muchos
against poverty
de negocio
across the globe.
daron el Papa
He
Francisco,
said, and these quotes are from the president of World Bank and not from the Vatican side.
presidente del
Francis and I agree on the urgent and moral imperative to
que
lessen the
yo
suffering
estamos
of over 1 billion people and to end
en
the
hacer algo
scandal of poverty.
disminuir el
The head, the president of
billón
World Bank,
de personas
declared that poverty on the globe is a
mundial.
scandal and it's a task and it's a challenge where the leaders
Es
both
una
of the economic world and of the
mundo.
spiritual world have to join their forces so
Y
we can
real
reduce it.
mundo
And
espiritual.
the
Esfuerzo
bottom 40%, we, especially in the developing countries,
ayudar
to eliminate poverty in the coming years.
zonas en países desarrollando.
Again, if we jump
De-
2 years, in 2015,
En
the
dos-
UN defined a universal portfolio of
Yes.
goals in order to support sustainability, which includes relevant aspects of the work.
metas
Number 1, no poverty,
para ayudar al desarrollo del todo,
good health, quality of life,
quitar la pobreza,
decent work,
quitar el
equal opportunities, and
trabajo,
so on. If you go through the 16 plus the 17, which is cooperation and integration, you can see that these goals are again based on the approach that work is not only to survive existentially or to generate profits, but to support the whole society.
lucro, pero también
And 1 year later, in 2016, in December, many of us, altogether 450 Christian business leaders, gathered together in Vatican from close to 50 countries to discuss how business leaders can become agents of economic and social inclusion.
tema de
Because
cómo
we realize that
los
we cannot
hombres
just look
que
and
pueden
watch
ser
and hope that the World Bank and
el mejoramiento del
the
mundo
church
y
and others and the states will do something. It's our task as well
grandes
to act as agents of economic and social inclusion.
mundial, pero también nosotros como
The story continues. Now, just a month ago,
algunos
World Economic Forum's 50th meeting or 51st meeting after 50 years. It was the first time that even the Pope was invited.
mundial
The chance through through Cardinal Turkson to send his message to all the key people of the World
oportunidad
Economic
para
Forum, which includes the major prime ministers, presidents,
like
leaders of the biggest companies, and so on. Where
different
again,
del mundo
reminded all the participants that we are all members of the one human family.
dijo que
We have a moral obligation to care for one another. The message is the same what we could read in the Caritas in Veritate encyclical letter. Now it's spread all over the world.
iguales y tenemos responsabilidad.
It's even in some way much more interesting that the founder of World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, introduced also an idea which he called
Economic
Great Reset. And he said, we need a change of mindset,
tenemos que
moving from short-term to long-term thinking, moving from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder
a
responsibility.
largo plazo.
This is again an idea
No solo buscar
in the Christian business community
futuro,
often stated, but now the founder and president of the World Economic Forum brought this idea to the whole audience, which is the whole political and economic world. And he already announced that 60 companies declared that they join this matrix.
quisieron
There will be a separate meeting in August in Singapore.
iban a
By that time,
en agosto
the goal is to achieve 200 companies signing up for this approach.
juntar sobre
This is really something which shows the convergence of the ideas of the church and the thoughts
para
of the economic and business world. Business ethics is a term which is relatively new. It only has a 50-year history, while business itself has more than 1,000-year history. Out of curiosity, I checked on the internet and I found out that the oldest business which still exists uninterrupted is in Japan, and it started in 705, 1,300 years ago, and still in operation. And the second, or the oldest in Europe, is in Austria. It's a restaurant. It started in 803 within a monastery, which existed already for 100 years at that time, which proves how close spirituality and business can be, or could be already 1,300 or 1,200 years ago.
No sé.
If we speak about business and we have to think about business ethics should again impact every step and every phase of the value chain. Business ethics should not only be a theory or a course at the universities, it should be put into practice as well.
No sé.
And it should have a normative approach. There should be a set of ideas how to do it and how to follow it. And that's why business ethics, law, and moral should be integrated and should become one unity. The relation of these three things, human dignity, business ethics, and common good,
relación de la dignidad
integrate them,
y la
we see
ética
that they are fully interdependent.
están absolutamente
For example, business ethics is justified because we accept human dignity as a basis.
ética de
If we
negocio
accept human dignity as a basis, then we have to behave ethically toward each other. And if we follow the practice business ethics, this is essential to support the common good, because again, the common good means that we have the goal to satisfy the needs of everybody and not just of certain persons or certain groups.
todos las necesidades
And if we accept a common good as a common goal, then its ultimate goal is again the human flourishing, which is based and linked to human dignity.
el meta común
And we can do it vice
ayudar
versa.
no mejorar.
So it means these three terms and this triangle is very important, and we have to focus on all of the three.
Tenemos que enfocarnos sobre todos estos aspectos cuando estamos haciendo
This triangle-based corporate world focuses on the stakeholder approach instead of the shareholder focus only. If we look and check the management theory, we can see that
enfoque sobre el
across the time, in
todos
the past few decades,
holder
in the 70s, in the 1970s, the owner was put in the center. The neoliberal approach said the owner
propietario
and the only important player. Later on, there was the idea, okay, we have to involve the managers as well. Then the customers, because they pay us,
invitar
we need
también
them.
los directores.
In today's knowledge economy, we need the motivation and brain of all the employees, so let's bring them also into our boat. Creditors,
También era necesario
microenvironment.
empleados.
In the past few decades, we started to think about the next generation as well, pollution, environment, and
Pensando también del futuro.
for many to think also about those who are disadvantaged in different forms, and to think about them as well, because this is the consequence if you think about human dignity, if you think about every people's need, and we think about being one human family. Many people say this is an utopia, it's just a desire, it's not valid, it cannot be practiced. My view is different, because I think it depends again how we think anthropologically about man.
Una empresa,
Do we think about man like other animals or robots? Or
no es como los demás animales.
Robot is better to do by somebody, a person. That was the first approach. The second was to think about people as Homo sapiens, thinking people with their intellectual life. And the third level is to think about the spiritual life as well.
Personas quienes son intelectuales,
in our world of economy and business, we accepted the second level very fast because we needed for the knowledge industry and knowledge economy, the intellectual life. But the mainstream still hesitates to acknowledge the third level. And of course, if we don't accept the third level, then a stakeholder approach and thinking also for the need of disadvantage is really a utopia. However, if we combine the previous list of all the stakeholders and integrate them with the layers
los grupos involucrados
and put it into this kind of matrix,
niveles de la persona y el cuadro,
something which I call the holistic stakeholder value matrix.
Digamos, es un
because we take consideration
interesado.
all the stakeholders and all the layers,
Todos los
and the value
niveles del hombre,
in profit and dollar terms, but value in all the boxes of this matrix. Now, as a business leader, owner and business leader,
como líder
only in one box
no
the
podemos
material financial value creation
ocupar
of a shareholder. Excuse me, it was not, nem sikerült a váltás most a slide-on. Okay, now it's okay. Now we have the same. Yeah. So if you only focus on one box, which is the material aspect of the
enfocado sobre
shareholder, which is a
aspecto
neoliberal approach
material
saying
de
that
los
we are here and we work only to generate profit, dividend, value
solamente
creation
para
in
generar
financial terms and for the owner. An extreme opposite are all the charity activities where we focus on the poor,
lado
maybe
extremo.
in each level of them or each layer or just
Activas que
some of
están
them. And I think the real
fuente sobre
corporate
los pobres,
responsibility would mean to think in all these boxes.
pero la responsabilidad
All
realmente
the
es
stakeholders and all the three layers. Of course, this is a real
no
challenge
ni los
to act and to make decisions
no, más
with 21 7
no
by 3 goals, which sometimes have conflicts with each
tratar
other.
de los tres
It's much
niveles
more
del
difficult than just to
mecanismo
think about how to make more and more profit. But this is what makes us human. This is
Esto
what makes
que
us
nos
co-creators of God.
hombre.
And this is what makes us
Es
business
lo
leaders different from a
creadores
software which compares different options and figures out which is which generates the highest profit.
pues,
So I
que es
think if we are, and if I speak about leaders, I speak about not just about those who run a big company. I also speak about those who have maybe two colleagues in a project and who is responsible for this project. And again, if you in this, and it can be even with a goal, not even for aiming profit and money, but maybe something very, very useful. But if you only think on this goal and you don't consider all the stakeholders and all these layers,
mando
it's a materialistic approach,
otras
and
personas
it's not the complexity, but we are
en
called
los
by
niveles
God.
del hombre, no vamos a tener éxito en lo que es.
So we spoke about human dignity, we spoke about business ethics, we
Estamos
spoke about common
hablando
good.
de la dignidad humana,
I
de
think if we
ética,
really acknowledge them and put them as goals,
niveles
we
del
have to think in this whole complexity of
si queremos vivir
the holistic stakeholder value matrix.
enseñanza de la iglesia social, la enseñanza social de la iglesia,
The
tenemos
idea of having not just the extremes like a traditional for-profit enterprise on one end and to have a traditional charity non-profit organization on the other end. By now, there are a lot of populations in between.
o tampoco un
And we can segment them according to their
lado
aim, which is always how they differentiate and how they relate between profit focus and impact focus.
tenemos
Besides the traditional for-profit enterprises,
aquí
we have companies who really focus in addition on
el,
corporate social
los negocios
responsibility.
de
I also mentioned creating shared value concept.
buscando
Also
tener
fits into this picture. There are mission and purpose-driven enterprises which say we set up this company because we want to support clean technology or hospitals or develop a new medicine against COVID or whatever. We have to make profit because this is why we get capital, but our aim is equally important to provide solutions for the society.
ofrecer
We have social enterprises and we have enterprising non-profit companies.
hacer, crear,
So there is a wide variety and not just two
poder
options.
hacer lo bueno que queremos hacer.
And, interestingly, the value of investment with social impacts, which means practically the left side of these options, by now has reached
El lado
43,000 billion US dollars worldwide, which is a fraction of the total amount which is invested, but still a very big amount. So it means it's not just the idea of some utopian people. There are organizations, family office, rich people,
con más de unos 23 billones de
who invest
dólares americanos
of
en
their
local
wealth
investidos
companies
compañías
more and more
que están haciendo
instead of
lucro,
profit
pero
focus,
también
the
están
impact focus becomes
buscando
more and
tener
more important,
un
which is
impacto
a
positivo
promising
en el
trend,
mundo.
especially since it's a growing
Este,
number. This number is based on a
manera
study made by
trabajar
BCG
ya
in
está
2018.
de
I'm
trabajar
sure, and I read the figures, that it's increasing in
palpable
on
cada,
every continent by now.
cada continente
Another good
están creciendo.
messages.
Estos
It's
números
not just that some old people suddenly realize they should
para
something,
hacer
do
cambio.
something good for the society and are ready to invest in something which doesn't maximize its profit but creates social value. But the young generation, the so-called Generation Y,
Los
those
jóvenes
who were born after 1981, wants to choose products, services,
muchas
the
veces
place they work,
es
the activities they do, much more linked to social
actividad
development than
más
to linked to pure money,
dedicado
pure profit,
a
pure
ayudar
size of
a
car,
personas
like that.
más bien por
The
puro
current trend of sharing economy, where people share their cars, flats, everything they have, is already a sign and a proof of it. We don't want to earn, I mean, the young generation doesn't
gastan
want to earn,
sus
to own
casas
everything. They want
y
to use. They
generación
want to use in a way which does not harm the environment,
cosas, pero
which
también
makes the use
compartir
and
cosas.
leverages the use of the resources on an efficient way, and not focusing only on pure maximization of profit.
En nuestro ambiente y todo lo que está alrededor de nosotros. Este sentido
So
de
we spoke about different versions of companies, and if you put them on a chart,
hay
the
muchos
vertical
niños,
axis is about the value for the society,
el
and
axis
the horizontal axis is
para la
how
sociedad
far and how deep they are oriented towards the common good.
es la
You
orientación.
can see that the neoliberal approach is not really a common good oriented approach. It provides certain value for the society, it provides jobs, it generates taxes and so on, but that's all.
de trabajo
If we involve
y
corporate social responsibility, that's a step forward.
si estamos añadiendo
If we continue with the creating shared value concept
responsabilidad social,
which I mentioned,
cuando
it's a step
crear,
further,
¿no? Compartir
and we can go further to the for benefit and even for the for others form. Here on the on the left hand side, I showed that legally each of them are correct, even the neoliberal one. They follow the rules, the law,
de todos esos
the taxes, and so on. Some of
negocios
them, like the CSR and the CSV one,
es ley.
in addition to being legally correct, are even ethically correct.
También legal
If somebody is ready and able and willing to go further, it can also, in addition to become altruistic,
y además
and that's why the church, as it states in the Caritas in Veritate encyclical letter, can say that in the recent decades, a broad intermediate area has emerged between the two types, for-profit and non-profit enterprise. One, which does not exclude profit,
espacio
instead
ahora
considers it a means for achieving human and social ends.
de non lucro y negocios de solo lucro hay mucho
And
espacio.
those who start
Los
a
dos
company, those
mucho
who run a
negocios
department or run a
están
company
buscando
have
no
in a
solamente
limited
el
way,
lucro,
but
también
have the chance to choose what kind of companies they lead or and how they lead companies.
y esto ya es un aspecto que muchos de
And
los
to give you my own
están
example
buscando.
as a kind of testimony, 900 years ago, a Jewish philosopher and rabbi, Maimonides,
Maimon
his thoughts and declared his thoughts about donations,
declaró
the
su
ethical values of different kind of donations.
pensamiento sobre donativos.
I don't want to go through all the levels. What was
No,
interesting and
por
what
todos los
struck
niveles,
me was that at the end of the day, he came to the conclusion, but the
pero
best thing is if we ensure a job
al final del mundo, el- lo mejor es conseguir un trabajo por alguien que no lo tiene. Al final, no necesitar los donativos.
5, 6 years ago, in
No
2015, where he said,
necesitar,
helping the poor financially will
ayudando
always be a provisional solution in the
es
face of
solamente una
pressing needs.
solución provisional.
Somebody's in need, we have to help.
Si alguien
The
necesita
broader
ayuda,
objective should
debemos
always be to allow them a
el-
dignified life through work.
darles conseguir una vida con dignidad.
And this is why I set up a company and started a company
Por
in
eso
the year of 2000
compañía en dos
with the single purpose to create and ensure jobs for those who
Tec-
otherwise couldn't have a job because
trabajo
they are
por lo
handicapped, because
que
they have certain other disadvantage
no
situations.
tendrían un trabajo.
So this company by now is 20-year-old.
Este
As we heard, we have
y
more than 100 employees.
tiene
Majority of them are handicapped, and practically all of them are disadvantaged. In addition, we have about 50 to 100 part-time workers. And our aim is to exactly what I showed, not to give donation,
es no
doesn't solve their problem and doesn't serve their human dignity, but
no
let
resuelva su
them
lo
work
que y
under
ayuda
certain conditions with our help. So, for
a
example, our
la
company
posibilidad de trabajar
collects them every morning by cars and takes
y
them
a
home
recogerles
and
cada
so on.
día.
So we give the support, but towards the market,
Y
we are a company like every other. We do services,
como
we
cualquier
work in logistics centers and so on. Maybe
ser
we need more time, more
ayuda,
people, and
pero
therefore we
necesitamos
create
más
less
gente, más
profit.
tiempo
But
y
the
tener
company is not here for profit,
lucro.
especially not because I set up this company in a
No
legal
es
form
para
that
lucro.
does not allow legally any kind of dividend payment to the owner. So I wanted to show
Y
and prove
la
that
compañía es
it
hecho
makes sense in a broader view to
de
create
la
a company and to invest into a company money and time,
profit.
although I will never get back anything of it. But if I think about this company, if I meet them,
Cuando
I think it's much more important than what I do in my rest and in the majority of my time as a strategic consultant,
mucho
supporting big companies who are profit making anyway, even without my support.
y es más, me da más
So
gozo y
I brought this example to let you know that it's
trabajo
not the
que
only one. Of
deberían
course, there are many
generar.
others. But since I have the chance now to share my view with you, I thought it's a good idea to let you know that even here in Hungary, even not by the richest people of the world, somebody like me who has a company, as my strategy consulting company had at the top, we were maybe 10 or 15. My non-profit company has more than 100 employees. So it's not a side effect. It's not something, a playground. It's very important for my life.
Mi otro negocio con los
So I spoke about the story and the convergence about between the secular world and the church view, Catholic social teaching. And I see that gradually the convergence
enseñanzas
happens. Words, terms, thoughts like personalism, friendship,
convergencia de la
happiness,
ya entra
common good,
en
human
nuestros
flourishing,
planes.
which originally were much more
Tenemos que
often used in the Catholic social teaching than in the
todos
language of leaders, management,
más
and
allá
business,
del puro
now appear and get practiced.
y ahora no solamente están en papel, pero
At the
también
beginning, I told you that the term human resource management, human resource, is in itself already a very, very disturbing
personas
terminology.
son
We always speak about persons.
para
If we
usar
speak about persons,
personas.
that means we follow the approach which was developed by Maritain, a French philosopher, of
Personas,
personalism, which
Person-
means we put the person into the middle.
pero las personas son lo que hacen el negocio.
And if we follow this approach, then personalism requires different kind of leaders than the leaders we saw in the neoliberal mainstream world. Because, as Watson writes, personalism requires servant leaders with a transforming vision who affirm their followers' human dignity.
Líderes servidores.
I cited, or the article I cited, has the title Personalism and Moral Leadership, the servant leader with a transforming vision.
El líder,
This person who wrote this article and book is not a priest, not a monk. I don't even know whether he's a churchman or not. He has a pure academic, approach, came to the conclusion that if we put the person into the middle, and then we rely from an anthropological point of view on personalism, that means that we have to lead people according to a servant leadership approach, where the leader is not the king, somebody who should be served, but the one who serves the rest of the
los
team
líderes no
to
son
achieve the results.
tan servidos, pero deben servir.
And this is why words of the business world like efficiency
Por eso trabajo
now get
palabras
the context
del mundo
of
de
solidarity,
yo,
economy, and sociality no more appear as antithetical but complementary elements.
ya deben entenderse como elementos complementarios
And
para
as a summary, I think, is the last
tomar
sentence.
solamente
Common good is
para
both
ganar.
a condition for and the result of the happiness. So serving the common good is not something
Viendo
we
el
make
común
as victims
llegará a
and
ser
we
hacia la felicidad.
we suffer from it.
Seremos víctimas, no vamos a
And
sufrir,
the consequence of
pero
happiness.
nuestras vidas serán más.
Some business leaders would like to become happy.
Muchos
And I don't think it's a
negocios quieren ser felices.
especially the word spirituality and love.
Cualidad y
You couldn't find any book, academic book, or
no
conference
podría
dealing with
encontrar
these words.
conferencias y
Recently, there are conferences, there are books, there are courses,
novicio
there are academic groups
del
focus on
negocio
these in the context of
y
business.
amor. Y ahora sí están por todas partes.
For example,
No,
Chris Sloaney, who used to be a Jesuit monk,
Chris-
he did for 7 years. After 7 years, he left
Uh,
the Jesuits and entered the business world and became a very famous vice president, by
los jesuitas
the way, in Singapore, of one of the biggest investment banks,
y llegó a ser
which he left in
presidente
the early 2000s when before the whole crisis and the toxic papers and so on showed
invest-
up, because he realized that it's not anymore his world. He wrote 2 books, at least I know about 2 of them, and this one is called Heroic Leadership, Best Practices from a 450-year-old company that changed the world. He
mejores
speaks about the Jesuits. And
y cambiaron
this is in this book,
y
business
el-
terms, showing the story and the approach of the Jesuits about Ignatius. And he speaks about love-driven leadership.
de los temas de los
And he
jesuitas.
says that love-driven leadership is the
Bro.
vision to see each person's talent,
El amor en el
potential, and
es
dignity.
la visión de querer
Love-driven leadership is the
la pot-
courage,
de cada
vision,
persona
and
y llegar
commitment to
cumplir.
unlock this potential,
Y cómo debemos
which
ponte-
result in loyalty and mutual support that energize and unite teams. And
y así
he learned it from the Jesuits,
ser
and he practiced it
lealtad
in his professional career.
mutual en el negocio que él
I don't
ha
know too much about
aprendido
this company, which is called Lovebox in the States, and about his owner and leaders.
era jesuita.
But this quote shows and proves that they are strongly following their faith when they say vision comes from God through inspiration. Mission is his vision
Su
grasped
catolicismo
by the mind.
está inspirando todo lo que
When mission descends into the heart,
es al
it
centro
becomes values.
de todo lo que hacen en
When we practice these values, it
la
becomes culture.
conexión está al centro del negocio, llegan a
There's also a statement which
cuando
says,
los actores llegan
set up a company, if we lead a
a colgar
company, if we are in the world of work, we can still think about our faith. We should, can, and should act as Christians
nuevos
in this context as well.
cristianos,
I said that servant leadership is the answer. The servant leadership is what should be followed if we want to think in love-based management. Here is a list about what it means. A few points regarding the character, what kind of person is the leader, how is should be his personal orientation, the task orientation, and process orientation. I want to only choose and focus on items like servanthood. So the leader is the servant. Does it ring the bell of Jesus? This is what he told us 2,000 years ago, not just told, but
Jesús
even
ha dicho
practiced it.
hace
Now,
dos
after 2,000 years, we realize it's a good
practicar
idea. Caring for others, developing others.
practicar lo que hizo
This kind, and I could go
Jesús,
through the whole list.
cuidar a los demás.
Sorry, again, the slide is not the same than what I have. Nálam megy? Ott nem. Yeah, now it's okay. Somehow, not always, it's not always synchronized. That's not a problem. That's just a challenge. Much lower than running a company. And as I said, when I speak about leaders, managers, I not speak about the top guy of a 300,000 employee company. I also speak about, we are here in one room, somebody has to speak about the IT background, colleagues,
pero también
and so on. Every project, on every level, involves somebody who has to make decisions, who runs the project, and these ideas are for all of them.
Ideas de liderazgo, de servicialidad, del bien común.
If we speak about the aspects of work and human dignity-based work, we can put lists, bullet points here in this form about dignity in work and dignity at work.
Ver el
Dignity in work means level of autonomy, which is partly related to job satisfaction.
Esto es
meaningful work,
están
not as a resource, but as a person, respect, and further development, learning, and other kind of development. On the other hand, dignity at work includes well-being, I'll come back to it later, just reward,
bienestar,
salary,
el premio, premiación
which
justa,
means having an impact on the decisions, security,
decir la
and
opinión,
equal opportunity.
física, igualdad, igual.
Since you will have a workshop after this meeting, I would suggest to think about and maybe even share and discuss about your memories and experiences, about your previous experiences in your life,
en su vida,
about situations where
situaciones,
you as a subordinate, as an employee, as a member of the team,
empleado,
could experience that it was realized, this kind of approach was realized, and what you felt and how it happened. And on the other hand, those when it was missed and you lacked this kind of implementation.
Aspectos estaban
Maybe more importantly,
faltando.
let's remind ourselves and let's think about how from now on we would like to do things and manage things differently with this kind of approach. If we are the boss, we are the project leader, we are the team leader. Maybe that's a good idea to bridge the gap between theory and the daily practice.
Cerrar la distancia
I
entre
spoke here about well-being.
empleado
Well-being
y
is
bienestar
practically a secular term.
y bienestar
And caring maybe as well. For the term we use at the church or at the Catholic social teaching, and we formulate it as integral human development, which means we as persons have different needs, and we, the whole man and every man, should develop and flourish. But as you can see, this is from the home page. of a public university in the United States, not even a Christian one, which speaks about 9 dimensions of wellness.
Es un
Of
sitio
course, it includes the physical,
de
financial, and
Estados
so on.
que habla
But
de
interestingly enough, in the
aspectos
middle, not just among the 9, but in the middle, they put the spiritual
en el
well-being.
centro. Interesantemente, en el
So
centro,
that
sí,
means we are not just allowed to speak about such issues among ourselves in this small circle, but it's something which now is part of the public domain. And it's acknowledged by many. Not by everybody, but by many.
En el público y la gente se dan cuenta de su necesidad.
And if we want to go into the details, and maybe
Queremos
it's for a later stage, I don't want to, of course, to read all these details, but here you can see the comparison of the traditional leadership approach, which is based on commands,
entre
coordinates, and what it means, the same approach
la manera
to follow the servant leadership approach.
y ahora
I think it makes sense to go through all these comparisons and to think about how and what makes the difference.
comparar.
And again, it's management theory. It's an official academic quote. It's not a speech. It's something which now is part of the public management science academic theory, and hopefully also soon and partly practice of the leaders.
De una
So
compañía.
there is a difference in the way we approach our decisions.
Hay una diferencia
Traditionally,
como estamos llegando a tomar nuestras decisiones.
ourselves, me,
Antes
we
estaba
think what is good now, short-term thinking, and what is good financially.
a corto plazo y después lo que es bueno.
This is the typical, this is the mainstream, this is what universities teach, this is what we can see.
Esto es lo
But
que
why and who and what hinders us? Why couldn't we think and decide on a much more holistic approach basis, which means
Pero
instead
ahora
of what is good for me, to think about what serves the common good,
una manera de
instead of the short-term thinking now,
no solamente lo
in the long run,
y no solamente es bueno para mañana,
and
estamos hablando
thinking in the
a largo
only
plazo,
aspect of what is good financially,
no estamos
taking
hablando
into consideration all aspects of
para
life,
ganar
all
dinero,
this wellness and all these
es bueno para
traits of
para
human
los aspectos de
persons.
la vida de la persona.
This latter is not yet the typical approach, but it can be, and for many it is. And if we want to follow the Catholic social teaching, this is our way of thinking.
O sea, seguir la enseñanza social de la
So I
Iglesia.
think I hope at
Pues,
least I could show and prove you that the Christian system provides a consistent set of answers to the key questions,
demostrado que la
whether it's about the private life or it's about the
cristiano
professional life.
ha dado a nosotros
Me, as a strategic consultant, when I start a project with a company, the first thing we always do is to answer the question regarding the company, what is the mission of the company,
la misión de la
what is the vision of the company,
comunidad.
and what should be the strategy to achieve this vision and fulfill the mission. Now, I tried to summarize it here for the man and its private life, and therefore, and as a consequence, based on it for the whole economy. If we think about the mission, I think the mission of all of us is to become similar to God. Similar meaning to try to get, to think, to view the situation, the people, and the whole world as much as possible with the view and eyes of God.
Como Dios ve a las
In the economy,
así como
management, implementation of love in the business, in the management, in the activities across the value chain, in the daily life.
En todo lo que están haciendo.
Our vision, our view as a person, as a human being, is to get integrated into the Holy Trinity.
Estar integrado.
Becoming part of God. The whole life of ours is a preparation for it.
Toda nuestra vida es preparación para esto.
The Holy afford to do it, to achieve a kind of a demo version of heaven in a company, in our working environment.
Tratado de ser un
It's
tipo
challenging, but it's manageable. Sometimes we can achieve it. The
del
strategy is
cielo aquí en la
for
tierra.
us as persons to
Fácil
think instead of homo economicus
hacer el
in
esfuerzo
homo
para
trinitarius.
hacerlo.
And in the economy, it also means not to be alone, but to
La-
think in a network or even in a communion of
Queremos
friends
solos
are also based on spiritual values.
ser y construir sobre
So as
valores
I said,
espirituales.
it's a consistent set of approach,
Un hecho
which
consistente,
is not the same what we can see in the outside world every day.
exactamente lo mismo. Podemos
Many say it's a
constatar en
utopia, it's
el mundo
idealistic, it's not
no es
something we should do.
o
There's a
utópico,
way to decide. There's a choice for everybody.
pero de todos
And
modos,
as I mentioned to you at the beginning, I have a little surprise for you about this choice and decision. A short video
y
to finish my
un video
presentation with it, which
corto
is about the choice for your private life and
sobre
choice for your life in the world of work.
lo que tengo que escoger.
So let's start with this short video. Igen? Ja, jó. Jó. Szegényeknek túl gyors voltam, biztos. Mehet? Indulhat?
Már látom, magyarul írva.
Your efforts are in vain. Do not think that life has a purpose for you.
Most megy a hang, ugye?
Always be aware that you are alone,
Nincs hang.
that you cannot rely on
Hang nincs,
anyone,
oké.
and that love is nothing but an illusion. No one will be proud of you. It's not true that life is worth living, and you can never be truly happy. Your friends will betray you. They lied when they told you that time heals all wounds. Take comfort from the fact that millions of people on earth, despite all the suffering, believe in precisely this. Turning bad into good, you are incapable of. Do not believe that to reverse your own fate you have a choice. You have a choice. You have a choice to reverse your own fate. Do not believe that you are incapable of turning bad into good. Believe in precisely this. Despite all the suffering, millions of people on earth take comfort from the fact that time heals all wounds. They lied when they told you that your friends will betray you and you can never be truly happy. Life is worth living. It's not true that no one will be proud of you and that love is nothing but an illusion, that you cannot rely on anyone, that you are alone. Always be aware that life has a purpose for you. Do not think your efforts are in vain. your efforts are in vain. Do not think that life has a purpose for you. Always be aware that you are alone, that you cannot rely on anyone, and that love is nothing but an illusion. No one will be proud of you. It's not true that life is worth living, and you can never be truly happy. Your friends will betray you. They lied when they told you that time heals all wounds. Take comfort from the fact that millions of people on earth, despite all the suffering, believe in precisely this: turning bad into good you are incapable of. Do not believe that to reverse your own fate you have a choice. You have a choice. You have a choice to reverse your own fate. Do not believe that you are incapable of turning bad into good. Believe in precisely this: despite all the suffering, millions of people on earth take comfort from the fact that time heals all wounds. They lied when they told you that your friends will betray you and you can never be truly happy. Life is worth living. It's not true that no one will be proud of you and that love is nothing but an illusion, that you cannot rely on anyone, that you are alone. Always be aware that life has a purpose for you. Do not think your efforts are in vain.
Just really. So thank you, Tibor, and we let you go home because you have to go home before we will have our questions because the curfew.
All right. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Yes. So, dear sisters, we will do the same thing with groups. You need to wait 5 minutes. And who were in YouTube, they can enter to Zoom and they will be in the small groups. And also be patient because there will be some